Okay, I'm going to get started by welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see you here. Welcome to everyone online who's joining as well. Today is our Pali Canon and English study group, which I'll explain to you guys what that is after our meditation, because we start each class with a meditation. The Buddha figured out how to get to this enlightened mental state where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you no longer experience any discontent feelings. You will have eliminated all your anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of this can be eliminated from the mind through training of your mind. Oftentimes people think it's the outside world that's causing certain inner feelings that you have, but it's actually your own mind that's causing those inner feelings. This is why you can eliminate them, because it's your own mind that's actually causing them. So the Buddha figured out how to get to this peace and joy through training his mind and uprooting certain pollutions that is in his mind. And that's what he then shared for the rest of his life, helping other people to understand that path. And one of those trainings that he shared is meditation. But you wouldn't be able to just meditate your way to this enlightened mental state. You're going to need more than just meditation. So that's why after our meditation, we're going to do some studying of the Buddha's original teachings so that you can see what he was actually teaching during his life. If you'd like to join for the meditation, the way that I start this is with some chanting to ease our mind into the meditation. And if you'd like to chant along, you're more than welcome to. There's some chanting sheets over there on the cabinet. You're welcome to help yourself to get one, and you can actually chant along because it's going to help you to ease your mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. And for those of you guys online, if you would like to get this, you can go to buddhadailywisdom.com, click on free books, and then you can just scroll down towards the bottom and you'll actually see the daily chanting sheet there. During the life of the Buddha, he used chanting as a way to help his students commit the teachings to memory, that every 2 weeks his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. This is how he helped his students to remember the teachings, because there wasn't books and audiobooks and videos and podcasts and things like this 2,500 years ago. So he used chanting to help his students to be able to remember the teachings. So you can see from the origins of chanting that this isn't a rite, a ritual, or ceremony, worship, or prayer, or anything like that. None of those things actually exist in the teachings of the Buddha. If you're seeing rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer associated with the teachings of the Buddha, those are misunderstandings of his teachings. So the Buddha never taught any of those kinds of things. He actually taught you to train your mind and cultivate the mind, developing the mind, and that's what's actually going to help you get to this peace and joy. There's no amount of rituals or ceremonies that you can do that's going to help you get to the peace and joy that the Buddha is sharing. So if you'd like to chant along, you're more than welcome to. If you see the English translations on these sheets, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of that, I don't think that the Buddha even created these chants by himself, because he wouldn't walk around and say, here, chant these chants to me out of respect for me. This would be ego and arrogance, right? And a person who's gotten to enlightenment, they don't see themselves as being above others, and they don't look down on people. They would just see everybody as being equal. So the Buddha wouldn't have created these by himself. But if you learn from a teacher how to move from anger and sadness and frustration and all these other discontent feelings to the peace and joy that is enlightenment, and this teacher didn't want anything or expect anything of you, they were just teaching you out of the kindness of their heart, you'd probably have a lot of appreciation, respect, and gratitude for that person too. And that's where I suspect these came from, either as students during his life or after his death. So we use these as a way to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. So if you'd like to chant along, you'll see you'll get more benefit out of the meditation. Once we're in the meditation, I'm going to be providing you some guidance where I'm going to be teaching you how to meditate while we're actually meditating. It's like instruction, but then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're just all meditating. We're here at the temple and everyone online will just all meditate at the same time. And during this period of quietness, I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds. There might be a car go by, a dog barking, a bird chirping, someone here might cough or sneeze or something like that. You can't be in a world where it's permanently quiet. When you're in meditation, if you have a craving for permanent silence, when you hear a sound, you'll cause your mind to be frustrated or annoyed. It's your own mind that's causing that. So you're not going to be able to be in an environment where it's permanently quiet. So when you hear that sound, whatever it is, just understand it's impermanent. It will arise, it will change and then it will fade away. And you can understand that the world's functioning exactly the way it's intended to function, and you can reside peaceful and joyful understanding that. So then after that period of quietness, then we're going to come out of that with some more chanting. And that's where I'll start today's class to help you guys understand more about what the Pali Canon English study group is in the teachings of the Buddha. In terms of your body position for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would learn these different positions at different times because they're kind of like tools that you would use as kind of part of a tool belt that you're erecting to be able to train your mind to get to enlightenment. But oftentimes people are learning in the seated position. So I'm going to share a little bit of guidance with you on the seated position. And then at another time, if you'd like to take courses and retreats that we offer, I'll teach you these other positions. In terms of your body position for meditation, you can sit however you like. There's not just one fixed way to sit. In the teachings of the Buddha, you're not training the body, you're training the mind. And all of our bodies are different, so we'll find different things to be comfortable. So the things that I share with you are just suggestions or recommendations, but you can really sit however you're comfortable. You're not interested in the body being painful, but you're also not interested in being luxurious either. You like it to be in the middle where it's comfortable. So some people like to sit on the floor or in a sofa or a bench or a chair or a wheelchair. If you're at home, you might be sitting in any number of these different ways. If you're sitting on the floor, you might have a cushion under your rear. This will help kind of soften the seat a bit. And if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross leg position, you might just decide to do that lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, this can impede the circulation and cause pain in the lower body. So you'd like to be able to relax and be comfortable in the lower body. Some people even like to put their legs off the mat. This gets the hips up in the air and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, allowing the circulation to flow. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. But again, it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. If you find this comfortable, you could use it, but there's other options too. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you can sit however you like. If anybody's in a bench or a sofa or a chair or a wheelchair or anything like this, you can also sit however you like too. Sometimes people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles, but you can see me sitting in a chair here with my legs crossed, so this is an option for you as well. And then you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. In terms of your upper body, it's helpful if this is erect. With the sternum up and the shoulders back, this will help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. Because what meditation is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you'd like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be erect with the sternum up and the shoulders back, because not only will it keep the mind attentive and alert, but it'll also make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to do some chanting to ease into meditation. You guys are welcome to join in, and then I'm going to come back in with the guidance to help you. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Potang Mahakawanang Apiwatiyami Sawakato Mahakawata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa ภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสรังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled. Just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาพุทธังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินับโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to everyone. Nice to see everyone here this morning. Welcome to everyone joining online as well. This meditation that we just did is called breathing mindfulness meditation. This is a primary form of training that the Buddha used in addition to other things to be able to move his mind to enlightenment. The goal of this meditation is to train your mind to let go. There's certain cravings, desires, attachments, this longing, yearning that's in the mind. This is what's causing your mind to experience anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. The mind is holding on. It doesn't know how to let go. It craves permanence. It's wanting things to be permanent, yet it's living in an impermanent world. So this meditation is helping you to build awareness of mind, which is called mindfulness, and concentration, where you can have focus and clarity. And then it's training your mind to let go. So if 10, 15, 20, 30 different times during your meditation you had to let go, this is really helpful for your mind, because the mind in the unenlightened state doesn't know how to do that. It's holding on. You can think back to the boyfriend or girlfriend that you were maybe with originally. You were maybe so happy and excited when you were with them, but when the relationship was over, you might have been experiencing anger or sadness, frustration. You might have been lonely or bored or missing this person. This is the mind holding on and craving permanence. The mind doesn't understand that it lives in an impermanent world, that everything around you is constantly changing. You can see this if you've had parents or grandparents or brothers or sisters or other people close to you that have died. You can see that the mind might have grieved or had sorrow during that period of time. That wasn't the love or your kid there that was causing that. That was the mind holding on and craving permanence. As long as the mind gets what it wants in the unenlightened state, it'll get happy or excited. It gets pleasant feelings. But when the mind doesn't get what it wants, it gets painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. And when someone dies, the mind in the unenlightened state doesn't understand the impermanent nature of this being, that because they were born, they had to die. They are not permanent, but the mind craves permanence, is holding on to this person, wanting them to be permanent. And now, as long as you're getting what you want, which is the person to be alive, the mind will be happy and have pleasure. But then when the mind's not getting what it wants, which is grandma, grandpa has died, now the mind experiences the painful feelings because it's holding on and craving permanence. You can see this if you've had maybe like a brand new car and then you parked it at a store and you went inside and came out and you saw a scratch on your car. You might have been angry or frustrated by this. This is the mind craving permanence, wanting the car to be permanently beautiful, when in reality, this car is impermanent. The paint's going to fade, the tires are going to need to be changed, the upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. And if your mind craves permanence, when you're confronted with impermanence, the mind doesn't like that. So the goal of this meditation isn't to train your mind to eliminate your thoughts. Sometimes people think that's the case because you might have experienced a bombardment of thoughts. You might have experienced thought. This is sometimes what the unenlightened mind experiences during the meditation or even in day-to-day life. Or you might have had a thought and you kind of followed that for a period of time. You looked at it, you indulged in it, you played with it, and then you were like, oh yeah, that's right, I'm meditating. Let me bring my mind back to the breath. These are the two common things that the unenlightened mind will do when it's meditating, because it's untrained, it's undisciplined. An individual doesn't have control of their mind. Even an enlightened being will have thoughts during their meditation, but they'll notice their thought right away and they'll cut it off and let it go and bring their mind back to the breath. And then there'll be this quietness and this stillness in between their thoughts. But eventually they're going to have another thought. So the goal of this meditation isn't to train your mind to eliminate your thoughts. It's to discipline your mind and train your mind so that you can let go, because what's causing these discontent feelings is the mind's holding on. Everything the Buddha taught in one way or another is training your mind to get to the point where it's this peace and joyful mental state. But you can't do that as long as you're holding on and craving permanence. So everything that I do here is to help students to be able to learn the original teachings of the Buddha using his original words. And we have different programs that I share to be able to help students to be able to understand these different teachings that the Buddha shared, because he figured out how to get to this enlightened mental state by himself without the help of any teachers or any guides. That's one of the first criteria of what makes a Buddha a Buddha. And then he dedicated the rest of his life to sharing his independently discovered teachings with countless people, helping people to understand what it took for him to get to enlightenment and helping them to be able to understand that. So we have different programs that help students to build up a foundation and a framework and then fill that in to help them really fully understand this path and how to train your mind. The teachings of the Buddha aren't based on a bunch of beliefs and then hoping something good happens when you die. It's about learning, growing, and developing in this life to train your mind, cultivate your mind, and get to peace and joy in this life. So on Sundays and Wednesdays, I share what's called the group learning program, where in this 13-book series, every Sunday I go chapter by chapter in this first book. It's called Developing a Life Practice, the Path That Leads to Enlightenment. And on Sundays at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. here at the temple, and also I live stream it. What I do is I help students to be able to understand the chapters in the book that are going to help guide you to this enlightened mental state. This Sunday, tomorrow at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., we're in chapter 19, which is titled The Difficult Human Existence, Sickness, Aging, and Death. These are three of the things that motivated Siddhartha Gautama to make his decision to go forward and actually train his mind to get to enlightenment. We're going to actually be talking about his life story tomorrow, and we're going to be talking about sickness, aging, and death, because these are three things that a human being typically really struggles with. Your own sickness, aging, and death, or the people around you when they're experiencing sickness, aging, and death. You might really struggle with that. So we're going to be talking about this tomorrow. If you guys would like to learn, that would be a great program for people to start out in the group learning program on Sundays and Wednesdays. And then we have various courses and retreats that also help you to build up your wisdom and your understanding of the teachings of the Buddha. And there's this program on Saturday called the Pali Canon in English Study Group. What the Pali Canon is it's 45 books that are this thick that are the largest, most complete collection of the teachings of the Buddha. And an individual who's interested in getting to enlightenment, they would be interested in studying the original teachings of the Buddha. But because it's so comprehensive and it's so large, the average person doesn't actually study the original words of the Buddha. There's about 500 million people who consider themselves to be Buddhist in the world, but very few of them actually study with the original words of the Buddha. But if you get back to the original words of the Buddha, you'll be able to see what did he teach and what he didn't teach. And then you can train your mind to get to this peace and this joy that is the enlightened mental state. So in the Pali Canon and English Study Group, I share volumes 2 through 13 of our book series, because what we did is we extracted this out of the 45 large volumes of books, which are the largest, most complete collection of the teachings of the Buddha. We have this extraction, which assembles a really excellent amount of teachings that are going to help you to be able to then make your way to enlightenment. And over the course of a year and a half, I gradually walk students through volumes 2 through 13 of our book series. And today, what we're doing is we're actually starting a new book. It's volume 13. We're coming to the end of this program. We're going to be restarting it in January. You don't have to start at the beginning, but we are going to be restarting it in January. And today we're starting volume 13, which is titled Generosity. Generosity is something that the Buddha shared in order to help you train your mind to also let go. Because as I shared with you, the mind in the unenlightened state is holding on and it's craving permanence. And while the meditation is helping you to be able to train your mind to let go, you need other things besides meditation. You wouldn't be able to just meditate your way to enlightenment. This is one of the biggest myths about the life story of the Buddha. People think he sat under a tree, he meditated, and instantly got to enlightenment. And this isn't actually true. It was gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. It took him 6 years to actually get to enlightenment. So generosity is one of the things that he taught in order to help you train your mind to let go. Because what generosity is where you're giving and sharing more than is strictly required in any given situation without any expectation of anything in return, such as your time, effort, energy, and resources. This is going to train your mind to let go. Because when you have craving, desire, attachment in your mind, you'll tend to hold on to things very tightly and be quite selfish. And the opposite of that is practicing generosity. So what we do in this Pali Canon English Study Group is I have the words of the Buddha here. And what I do is I invite students here at the temple and those of you guys in Zoom to be able to read a chapter, read it out loud so that we can all kind of listen to it and understand it. And then what I do is I'm going to share some teachings with you on that. And then I'm going to open up to any and all questions that you might have related to that particular chapter. You can see here, this chapter is basically one paragraph. It's pretty short. We're starting off with the first chapter of volume 13. So if you would like to volunteer to read here, or if you have a question, we have microphones in the white bowl here in the middle of the room. Just get a microphone, press the gray button, hold this up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then you can keep these microphones with you because you might have a question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share the microphone. And then if you're not using it, if you could turn it off, that'll help us to not get feedback through the speakers. And then for anybody who's online, if you have a question, if you're in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, you can put that in the comment section. I'll be able to see that. Or if you're in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand to ask a question or volunteer to read any of these chapters. So I'll show you guys how this program works, where you can gradually learn the words of the Buddha. This isn't where someone would typically start in their journey to enlightenment in this particular program in volume 13, but you'll surely learn something today. It's just that just understand that we have other programs that are more of a traditional style of learning, where I will teach for 15, 20, 30 minutes and then open up for questions. And then I'll teach another 15, 20, 30 minutes, open up for questions. That's what you'll see tomorrow and all the other places that I teach. But this program is unique that we do it more as a study group because people are kind of filling in this framework that they've created from all of our foundational classes. But oftentimes there's new people here, so you'll actually be able to learn something today as well. So is there someone who would like to volunteer to read this first chapter? Sure. Go ahead, Terrence.
Chapter 1, Giving. But here, student, some man or woman gives food, drink, clothing, carriages, garlands, scents, ointments, beds, dwelling and lamps to ascetics or Brahmins. Because of performing and undertaking such action on the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in a happy destination, even in the heavenly world. But if instead he comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is wealthy.
Okay, thank you, Terrence. So what you're seeing here is the Buddha talking about giving and sharing. And the goal of his teachings isn't about being reborn in the heavenly world. That's not his teachings, or in terms of his goal of his teachings. He does teach that you can be reborn in the heavenly world, but that's not the ultimate goal. And also, it's not the ultimate goal to be wealthy. But what he's doing here is he's helping you to be able to see the results of giving and sharing. And he talks about the generosity in many different places. That's why there's an entire book dedicated to this. But here at the beginning, this particular chapter, he's talking about giving and sharing with ordained practitioners and Brahmin. Brahmin are like Hindu priests. During his lifetime, there was people that was practicing that. So as an individual trains their mind to practice generosity, it's helping them to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, their mind holding on. This is what's causing the discontentedness. And if you reduce your craving, desire, attachment, you'll experience a certain improved rebirth potentially, right? And one of the rebirths that you could experience is in the heavenly world or in the human state. And, potentially having wealth can actually be helpful to a certain degree. Being wealthy isn't going to lead to your happiness. That's not what's going to be leading to your happiness, because you could have all the money in the world and still be sad and upset and angry and frustrated. Otherwise, rich people wouldn't commit suicide, right? If money led to happiness, and if you were rich, you were happy, then there'd be no such thing as rich people killing themselves, because rich people do kill themselves because they're unhappy, they're sad. So it's not money that's actually leading to your happiness. But what the Buddha is helping you to be able to see is that when you're giving and sharing, you're reducing your craving, desire, attachment, and having done so, there can be rebirth in the heavenly world. And if you come back into the human state, then there's the potential for you to experience wealth. That's not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is for you to learn, grow, and develop in this life, and actually train your mind and get to enlightenment in this life. But the same things that lead to improvement to the condition of your mind in this life to be able to get to enlightenment are the same things that if you die prior to enlightenment, it leads to these kinds of results in your next life. And that's what the Buddha is teaching you. So he's teaching you in this life to train your mind to get to the peace and joy in this life, enlightenment. But if you fall short of that for any reason, then there's potential rebirth in the heavenly realm, in the human realm, and there can be improved results like having more wealth. Because if you had wealth in this life, then you actually would be able to spend more time to learn and train your mind to be able to get to enlightenment. Whereas if you were struggling day by day just to be able to provide for your food, clothing, shelter, and medical care, you would find it very challenging to be able to do things like read books, to meditate, to come to classes and learn with teachers and stuff like that, come to the temple. So having wealth actually helps you to overcome an obstacle of needing to be able to live paycheck to paycheck, for example, and just worry about where your next meal is coming from. So the Buddha isn't teaching you to go out there and chase wealth, or that wealth is going to lead to some kind of happiness or anything like that. But you can understand that there are certain obstacles that we all have in life, and we need to overcome those obstacles. When we're born, we come into this world with basically nothing, and then we gradually grow from there. And there are certain obstacles that we face, and having a certain amount of money to be able to provide for your food and clothing, shelter, medical care allows you to provide the opportunity to then be able to focus on other things like your own inner growth and learning and growing as an individual. So this is just kind of introducing this first part of generosity, where it's talking about giving and sharing and helping you to understand ultimately what it's doing is helping you to eliminate craving. And by eliminating craving, if you fall short of enlightenment for any reason, there's potential improved rebirth. But that's not the actual goal of the teachings of the Buddha. It's to get to enlightenment in this life so you can experience peace and joy for the rest of your life. So in these chapters, you have the words of the Buddha, you have a reference that takes you back to the original source teachings in the Pali Canon, so you can see where this comes from. And then you have words from me that are helping you to be able to understand how to integrate this into your day-to-day life. So each one of these chapters has this. And these books you can actually get for free at no cost. You can download them from our website. You can take them and go print them yourself. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can get them on Amazon if your country has access to Amazon. So let me see if you guys have any questions about this short little chapter. Anything you guys would like to ask? No questions? Okay. I don't see any questions online either. Okay, so let's go to the second chapter. Is there someone who would like to read this one? This is another short one.
What is accomplishment in generosity? And what is accomplishment in generosity? Here, a noble disciple resides at home with a mind free from the stain of selfishness, freely generous, open-handed, joyful in letting go, devoted to charity, joyful in giving and sharing. This is called accomplishment in generosity.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. So in order to get to enlightenment, an individual is going to need to practice generosity. If you find it hard to share with other people, this is the mind's craving, desire, attachment. The mind thinks that if I spend 3 hours doing this, I want this in return. And if I spend 3 days doing this, I want this in return, right? The mind is unwilling to just share with others. What the mind is doing in the unenlightened state as a human being is it's functioning very much like an animal. We aren't animals. We are human beings. We can evolve past our animalistic instincts. But as a human being, many of us have been reborn in the animal world many times. So when we come into this human life, the unenlightened human mind functions very much like an animal. An animal will hoard things. An animal finds it very difficult to share. It will hoard its food, for example, and then it will growl and roar at other animals when it tries to come and tries to get close to its food. So what you're doing on the path to enlightenment, getting from this unenlightened human state to the enlightened mental state, is you're becoming a better and better human being. You're evolving beyond these animalistic instincts. So in order to get to the first stage of enlightenment and then beyond, which the mind is actually enlightened when you get to the fourth stage of enlightenment, you would need to practice accomplishment in generosity. You would need to be joyful in giving and sharing with others, living open-handedly. So someone learns very early in their development on the path to enlightenment that the practice of generosity is an important part of your journey to enlightenment. But oftentimes people find it very difficult to be generous with others because, again, the mind is having craving and it's kind of hoarding the things that it actually has acquired, functioning very much like an animal. But what the Buddha teaches you to do is give and share with others, because you'll notice that this trains your mind to let go. And this accomplishment in generosity is a quality of mind that somebody is cultivating, that by the time you get to the first stage of enlightenment, you will be practicing this, where you're joyful and living open-handedly, sharing with other people. And now that's going to help you to continue to progress further and further on the path to enlightenment. The Buddha was a prince. He was destined to become a king. So he was very rich and wealthy at one time, but he stepped away from that into a life of homelessness. And he talks about his current life, which happened over 2,500 years ago, and his previous lives as well. He talks about all this generosity that he practiced that was able to help him to get to enlightenment as an actual Buddha. And he knew that generosity was an important part of the training in order to be able to help his mind get to enlightenment. So he actually shared that as part of his teachings, to practice generosity, because he knew it helped him, so it was going to help other people too. Sometimes if somebody sees that a teacher like the Buddha is teaching to give him resources like food and clothing and shelter and medical care and things like this, someone might think, he's trying to enrich himself. But this isn't actually true, because he was already rich, right? He was a prince destined to become a king. He chose to step away from that and enter into a life of homelessness. In fact, he didn't even accept things like gold and silver or land or anything of material wealth like this. He wouldn't accept that, because he lived side by side with his students, where they were able to provide him with food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. So he didn't need any kind of money to carry around, because he had everything that he needed living alongside of his students. Where today, teachers do accept financial contributions and things like this, because there's electric to pay, water to pay, the way our society is, that we need to kind of pay certain bills in order to be able to share the teachings. So while we offer the teachings at no cost, it does cost money to be able to share the teachings because there's certain things that we need to purchase. But during the lifetime of the Buddha, he didn't do that, right? He just accepted food, clothing, shelter, and medical care, the things to sustain his life. And that's the type of lifestyle that he was able to live. So when you're learning about generosity as part of the teachings of the Buddha, it's important that if you have any conditioning of your mind where you see people today that are maybe enriching themselves based on teachings like this, that's not what the Buddha did. The Buddha didn't do that. He was teaching generosity because he knew that it led to his enlightenment, and he had to practice an extensive amount of generosity to get to enlightenment. And you're going to need to do that too. You're going to need to learn how to share your time, your effort, your energy, and your resources without any expectation of anything in return from others, even a thank you. So for example, if you're walking into a store and you're holding the door for somebody and they walk through and they don't say thank you, you'll cause your mind to be frustrated or angry or irritated because you want something from them. You want a thank you. That's your craving. That's your longing. That's your yearning. If you're practicing generosity, you need to do it with just one goal in mind. The one goal that you have is to enhance the quality of your mind. If you understand that generosity is training your mind to let go, that should be your only goal with generosity, is training your mind to let go. If someone says thank you, great, that's wonderful. If they don't say thank you, okay, great, that's fine too. You're not there because you want something from them. You're not holding the door because you want something from them, but because you know it's enhancing the quality of your mind. Because with the universal truth of impermanence, meaning things are constantly changing, some people are going to walk through the door and say thank you. Maybe when you walk through the door, you say thank you, but other people don't do that. Right? That's the impermanent nature of the world. Some people's minds are going to be so caught up in thinking about what it is they want out of this store, they're not even going to see you standing there holding the door. Or maybe they even do see you standing there holding the door, and they just don't think about actually saying thank you. So you need to get to the point where when you're practicing generosity, if you're sharing money, if you're sharing food, if you're sharing any particular thing whatsoever, that you're doing it without any expectation of anything in return from other people, because that's what's training your mind to let go. As long as you have some kind of craving or longing or yearning, something you want or expect from other people, then you're not practicing pure generosity yet. And it's not training your mind to let go. So the Buddha teaches you to get to this accomplishment in generosity where you're regularly, frequently practicing generosity. He taught this as a daily practice. Just like you would practice meditation daily, he teaches you to frequently practice generosity. What you're going to notice is the frequency of your generosity is actually more important than the amount. So say, for example, you were going to donate $500 once a year to a children's orphanage. That's not going to have nearly as much benefit for you as if you practice offering $1 a day. And each day you give $1, because that's training your mind more frequently to let go. Because now 365 days out of the year, you're having to let go, let go, let go, let go, let go, right? Or say you were going to give $5 a day in general to some kind of charitable event or some kind of charitable organization. You'd like to give like $1 5 times throughout your day. So that's why, like Thailand, if you go into different stores and different places like this, they typically have donation boxes everywhere. And you can put 10 baht or 20 baht each place you go, and just kind of training your mind to let go. Because if you notice that when your bank account's up here, you're really happy, and when it goes down here, you're sad or frustrated, that's because you're attached to your money. Your mind is craving more and more and more money. And when it's going up, you feel great and you feel happy. But because of impermanence, sometimes your money is going to go down. And now you feel angry or sad or frustrated. It's your own mind that's causing that. Because all that's happened here is change, but your mind's craving permanence. So if you're noticing that emotions that are coming up because of your money, you're going to need to share your money in order to train your mind to let that go. If you get your clothes out of the washing machine and you see they're ripped and torn and you're upset and frustrated by that, you're going to need to start practicing generosity with your clothing in order to train your mind to let go, because you're craving your clothing to be permanent when your clothing isn't permanent, right? That's why that emotion, that's why that frustration is coming up when you see your clothes ripped and torn, because your mind's craving permanence when you live in an impermanent world. So it would be wise to share your clothing, kind of give it away to others. If you're noticing other things, like maybe you have jewelry, and you're noticing when you misplace your jewelry that you're really upset, or your mind's kind of racing and you're really frustrated by this, it would be wise for you to share your jewelry. Maybe you have some lesser expensive jewelry, maybe some just kind of basic jewelry that you could share with other people. You could give it away. Or if you have expensive jewelry, maybe you have certain people that you trust that you could let them wear it, like your parents or your siblings or a close friend or something like this. You could let them wear it for a period of time to train your mind to let it go and not to crave for it to be permanent. So wherever you see your mind craving and holding on to things, if you start practicing generosity with those things, it'll train your mind to let go. You know, one time I noticed my young son, he's 13 now, but when he was younger, he had this big craving for popcorn. He wanted me to get him all this popcorn. And it was during the COVID period, because at one point we ordered through the delivery service to get popcorn from the movie theater. And he had this big tub of popcorn, and he ate this popcorn. It was pretty expensive in my opinion. And then the next day he was like, "Dad, can we have some more popcorn?" And I was like, "Oh, he's got a big craving here," right? So I went out and I figured out how to make popcorn on the stove, because I knew that I was going to need to pop a lot of popcorn to be able to help him get rid of this craving. So we were popping popcorn almost every day for this kid, helping him. And then eventually I taught him how to pop it himself so that I didn't need to do it. Well, he was still having all this craving for like multiple months. And then eventually I suggested to him that, why don't you pop a bunch of popcorn, bag it up, and then go around the village and give it out to some of your friends, because he has different friends throughout the village. So that's what he did. He popped a big pop of popcorn, and he made these little bags, and he went around to each house and he gave them out and practiced generosity, training his mind to let go. He still eats popcorn from time to time, but it's not when he had when he had a craving. When he had a craving, it was like every day, popcorn, 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 popcorn. It probably took him a good 2 to 3 years to eliminate that craving. There was tons of popcorn being popped in our house. So he needed to practice generosity with his popcorn, right? So if you're noticing that you're attached to chocolate and you eat chocolate regularly, you're going to need to give that away. You're going to need to train your mind to let go of these things. So this is just one practice of many practices that the Buddha has to train your mind to let go. And meditation is part of that. Generosity is part of that. And there's other things that he teaches to train your mind to let go as well. And you would be very wise to practice generosity with the people around you. When you're practicing generosity in a group of people, it's important that you practice generosity with everybody. So say, for example, if you worked in an office of 8 people and you brought in 2 donuts for your best coworker friends that are at work, the other 6 people, they're going to get jealous, right? Because they see you practicing this generosity with these 2 people. And they don't know that their mind is causing their own jealousy. They don't know that because they're not on the path to enlightenment, perhaps, right? And now their jealousy, those painful feelings that they're having, they're going to attribute that to you. They're going to think that it's you that's causing them to experience these painful feelings. And they're either going to want to push you away, they're going to want to be bitter and harsh and hostile to you, or they're going to start putting their expectations on you and try to force you and control you to do things their way. And this isn't really a good way to live life. So what the Buddha teaches you is to treat everybody equally. So if you're going to practice generosity in a group of people, like at your coworkers, it would be wise to bring a donate for everybody or a bagel for everybody. So if you work in a small office with just 8 people, that's pretty manageable for you, right? But if you work in an office with 300 people, that's going to be very challenging to bring 300 bagels or 300 donuts. So what you can do in this case is say that you can afford maybe 20 donuts, right? You buy the 20 donuts, maybe you put them in the conference room, and now you send out an email to the entire company that says, "Hey, I brought some donuts back to the office after lunch. They're in the conference room. There's 20 of them there. You're welcome to help yourself to them," right? So now the first 20 people who go into the conference room, they're going to get a donut. But the 21st person who was, delaying and kind of working on something and shows up and they don't get a donut, they realize that it was their decision that led to that. It wasn't your decision. You're practicing being treating everybody equally, where you've offered these donuts to everybody and there's 20 of them there for anybody who would like to get them. But if I've delayed and I've chosen on my own not to go to the conference room to get a donut, then it's my choice and I can see that more clearly. But for you, you're protecting your way of practice, that you're actually practicing in such a way that you're treating everybody equally. So this is how you would like to practice generosity. And you'd like to integrate generosity into your life where it's very easy for you to practice generosity. So say, for example, you're going to the market and you're buying yourself some mangoes, but you know that your neighbor really likes bananas, right? So you might actually toss some bananas into the bag while you're there. It'll take you maybe an extra 3 minutes or maybe an extra 30 seconds to be able to toss these bananas in and purchase some bananas for your neighbor. And that would be helpful for you to be able to integrate generosity that way. Or say you're going into the store to buy yourself a chocolate bar, and now you're buying a chocolate bar. Maybe you buy an extra 1 or 2 for someone else, and you know you're going to give it to them as part of your day. Or maybe you don't even know who you're going to give it to. You have no idea, but you know you're going to interact with people throughout your day, and you're buying yourself a chocolate bar and you buy one for someone else so that you have it available, that when you interact with somebody during your day, you're able to give it to them, right? This helps you to be able to integrate generosity into your day-to-day life, because you need a frequent practice of generosity where you're regularly practicing generosity. And you can integrate it into your life like this, where it just takes you 10 seconds or 30 seconds to practice a little bit of generosity. So this is the Buddhist teachings on what is accomplishment in generosity, because there's another part of his teachings where he shares with you that in order to get to the first stage of enlightenment, you need to practice accomplishment in generosity. If you're not practicing accomplishment in generosity, you wouldn't be able to get to this first stage of enlightenment. So therefore, you wouldn't be able to get to ultimately the 4th stage, which is where your mind is actually enlightened. So this is practicing accomplishment in generosity, being joyful in giving and sharing with other people around you. So do you guys have any questions on anything I shared or anything here? No questions? Okay. I don't see anything online either. All right, so let's see what the next chapter is. All right, this is chapter 3. Is there someone who would like to read this? Okay, go ahead, Joe.
A directly visible fruit of giving related to future lives. Is it possible, Venerable Sir, to point out a directly visible fruit of giving? It is Siha. Number 1, a donor. Siha, a generous giver, is dear and agreeable to many people. This is a directly visible fruit of giving. Number 2, again, wholesome persons go in large numbers to a donor, a generous giver. This too is a directly visible fruit of giving. Number 3, again, a donor, a generous giver, acquires a wholesome reputation. This too, the directly visible fruit of giving. Again, whatever assembly a donor, a generous giver approaches, whether of Khatiyas, Brahmins, household, or ascetics, he approaches it confidently and composed. This too, the directly visible fruit of giving. Number 5, again, with the breakup of the body after death, a donor, a generous giver, a reborn in a good destination in a heavenly world. This is a fruit of giving related to future lives.
Okay, thank you, Joe. So here, this is essentially some of the benefits of giving. It's not all the benefits of giving, but it's some of the benefits of giving. And I'll walk you one by one so that you can understand. So this first one, he says, a donor, a generous giver, is dear and agreeable to many people. If you start bringing donuts into work, you're going to be dear and agreeable to many people, right? They're going to start looking at you in a more fond way. That shouldn't be your purpose of why you're giving, right? But just understand that the Buddha is saying that based on the natural law of cause and effect, what's called the natural law of karma, this is what you're going to experience. Because everything the Buddha is teaching you is helping you to understand this natural law of karma, of cause and effect, or action and result. When you make certain decisions, either wisely or unwisely, it's going to produce either wholesome karma or unwholesome karma. This is just the results of your decisions. So you start practicing generosity with the people around you, you are going to see that people are going to look at you in a more agreeable and favorable way. And that shouldn't be your goal, because if that is what you're trying to accomplish, you're not practicing pure generosity yet. You need to be able to practice generosity where you don't want anything or expect anything. But this is what's going to occur. And then wholesome persons go in large numbers to a donor, a generous giver. This is one of the benefits of practicing generosity. You'll see that wholesome people will be interested in being around you. And in order to make your way to improvements in your life and getting to this enlightened mental state, you're going to need to have wholesome people around you. If you attract unwholesome people around you, you're going to do unwholesome things, and your life's going to basically spiral downward. But if you are around wholesome people, you're going to tend to be leaning in that direction, and you're going to start making more and more wise decisions. Then 3, a generous giver acquires a wholesome reputation. This is true too, right? When you start giving and sharing in your community with your neighbors, with your coworkers, with your family and friends, you're going to have more and more of a wholesome reputation. Again, that's not the goal. That shouldn't be what you focus on, because if that's what you want, you're not practicing pure generosity yet, and this isn't actually going to happen, right? You need to be able to practice pure generosity, and the Buddha is just helping you see this cause and effect of what will happen, but this shouldn't be your goal. You shouldn't ever look at the teachings of the Buddha in isolation. You need to be able to look at them in totality. Here, we're just looking at one discourse. But if you look at all these other discourses about generosity, ultimately what he shares with you is the ultimate goal of practicing generosity is to enhance the quality of your mind. That's it. But there are these benefits or these fruits that are occurring. And he's sharing this with you so that when they are occurring, you will understand that it's from your generosity, and you will understand that it's this natural law of karma that's at play, because that's what he's actually helping you to be able to awaken to, is cultivate the wisdom of this natural laws. So if you didn't understand that this was going on and it was because of your generosity, you wouldn't be able to see the cause and effect of that. But he's not telling you that that you should practice generosity in order to get these things. He's just helping you to be able to see that, hey, when you see these things happening around you, this is because of your generosity. Number 4, whatever assembly a donor, a generous giver approaches, whether Khatyas, Brahmins, householders, or ascetics, he approaches it confidently and composed. What this is Khatyas during the lifetime of the Buddha were people who the Buddha looked at as being kind of like individuals who were practicing good, wholesome moral conduct. People that he he was helping people to be able to see that this group of people were practicing good, wise decisions related to their moral conduct and the way that they interacted with each other. He kind of held them up as kind of almost like an ideal society, so to speak, right? So the Khatyas are people who are into a lot of wholesome things and doing wholesome things. This was even before the Buddha was teaching, because these natural laws that the Buddha teaches, there were people that were getting exposure to them in one way or another. And this population of people, they understood good, wholesome moral conduct. So that's why he talks about them as being wholesome. Brahmins also, even though they were Hindu priests who were doing rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship, they were trying to teach a certain amount of wholesomeness, and they were considered to be wholesome people. Householders are individuals who are practicing the teachings of the Buddha from the household life. So they're going to be having a certain amount of wholesomeness. And then the same thing as ascetics. These are people who have given up worldly life in order to seek a better understanding of the world. We might refer to these people as ordained practitioners today. So these 4 types of people are people who are into wholesome things. Okay? If you are into unwholesome things and you're doing unwise things, you're making unwise choices, when you come around people who are doing wholesome things, you will typically have a certain amount of maybe guilt or shame within your own mind. You will have a lack of confidence when you go spend time around these people. You will be kind of shaken up when you're around certain wholesome people. So what the Buddha is saying is that if you practice this wholesome, wise decision of generosity and you're giving and sharing, essentially understanding that it's helping to enhance the quality of your mind, and you're practicing on this path to enlightenment. And when you're around wholesome people, you'll be confident and composed because you know that you're also practicing wholesomeness. But if you have conceit in your mind where you're measuring and comparing yourself and putting yourself above people and below people, if you know that you're into unwholesome things, when you come around people who are into wholesome things, you will tend to put yourself below them and you will be shaken up and you will lack confidence. But if you're practicing generosity, you won't have that because your mind understands this wholesomeness that you're practicing. And now when you approach wholesome people, you'll be able to be doing that confidently and composed. So this is what he's sharing here. And now this last one, the fifth one, this is what I was sharing earlier, that the same things that lead to enlightenment, if you fall short of enlightenment for any reason, there's the potential to be reborn in this heavenly world. This isn't something that is the goal of the teachings of the Buddha, but whenever he's teaching about his certain teachings, whether it's moral conduct or whether it's generosity or things like this, all of that is designed to help you eliminate what's called craving, anger, and ignorance in your mind. And that's the pollutions of the mind. And if you have less pollutions at the time of death, then there's the potential for a rebirth in a place like the heavenly world, right? But that's not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is to eliminate all your pollution of mind so you can get to the peace and joy in this life. The teachings of the Buddha, he doesn't describe once you get to enlightenment what happens next. But he does explain that if you aren't enlightened, there is going to be rebirth. And he describes 5 realms: the hell realm, the animal realm, the afflicted spirits, which are like ghosts, the human realm, and then the heavenly realm. And as I shared, that the teachings of the Buddha aren't based in belief. You don't believe these 5 realms exist. You never believe any of the teachings of the Buddha. But instead, you can actually independently verify this. You might not have the wisdom of how to do that right now, but over time, you can cultivate the wisdom of how to independently verify these 5 realms in the cycle of rebirth. So here, if you're practicing generosity, you will have less craving in your mind at the time of death. And if someone hasn't gotten to enlightenment, then there's the potential for them to be reborn in the heavenly world. But the heavenly world is not permanent, just like everything around us. It is impermanent. So being reborn in the heavenly world isn't a permanent existence. Those beings are still in the cycle of rebirth. They still need to get to enlightenment. So if they don't get to enlightenment, they will then be reborn back into other realms. And now they're continuing in the journey to cultivate their mind and potentially get to enlightenment. So getting to the heavenly world is not an ideal existence. Those beings, they experience exclusively pleasant feelings, which means they don't have painful feelings, and they don't have neither painful nor pleasant feelings like shyness or uncomfortableness or dissatisfaction. In the human realm, we have 3 feelings in the unenlightened state. We have pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, and others. We have painful feelings like sadness, anger, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, things like this. And then you have neither painful nor pleasant feelings like boredom and loneliness and things like this, shyness. So the mind in the human state almost has built-in motivation to be able to get to enlightenment because you don't like those painful feelings and you don't like those neither painful nor pleasant feelings. So the mind is almost motivated to be able to experience something better. Where in the heavenly realm, they don't experience that. They only experience pleasant feelings. So they tend to be complacent and they tend to not grow and learn and develop in order to be able to get to enlightenment. So because it's not a permanent existence, those beings will oftentimes be reborn into other realms. They can be reborn back into the human realm, but they could also be reborn into the hell realm, the animal realm, or the afflicted spirits realm. And now they're going to need to make their way into either another human existence or heavenly existence to be able to then make their way to enlightenment. So the ultimate goal isn't to get to heaven. And even for a being that is in the heavenly realm, it's not ideal because they tend to be complacent. Okay, so do you guys have any questions on this particular chapter? This is chapter 3. No questions? Okay, let's see what the next chapter is. 5 benefits of giving. Okay, this is very similar to the one that we actually just read. It's just stripped down a little bit. So you can see it's actually very similar to the one that we just read. And I think maybe what we'll do is let's just end our class here. I usually end around 10:30, but I think you guys are understanding this topic of generosity, where you're giving and sharing without any expectation of anything in return, and it's enhancing the quality of the mind, training your mind to eliminate the craving and the selfishness, the holding on. And whenever you're practicing generosity, you need to practice it from the middle way. If you were to practice generosity excessively, you wouldn't have the resources that you need in order to sustain your life. But if you were never practicing generosity, you're going to be quite selfish and holding on to things very tightly. So you'd like to even practice your generosity from the middle way, where you can be joyful in sharing with others, but you make sure that you have what you need in order to be able to sustain your life and acquire the things that you need in your day-to-day life. So everything the Buddha taught is practicing the middle way. And even something like generosity, if you were to do it in excess, it's not wise. It's going to produce unwholesome results. But if you are never practicing generosity, that's going to produce unwholesome results too. So remember, it's the frequency of your generosity that's more important than the duration. And it's your time, effort, energy, and resources. Maybe you come out of your house and you see your neighbor's trash is blown all over their yard. Maybe they're on vacation. You could take some time, maybe 5 minutes if you have it, to be able to pick up their trash perhaps, and you put it in the corner, maybe keep it there. You don't even need to tell your neighbors necessarily that you did it, right? Because you're not looking for them to give you a pat on the back and good boy, good girl, right? You're just enhancing the quality of your mind. You don't want anything or expect anything. In fact, oftentimes when people donate, they donate anonymously. This is one of the ways to make sure that you help your mind to not crave or longer yearn or want something from other people, that you're not even looking for acknowledgement of your generosity. So you would like to integrate generosity into your life and make it easy for you. You're at the market buying some mangoes, toss some bananas in there. You're buying a chocolate bar, get an extra one. Takes you an extra few seconds. So this is what you would like to be integrating into your day-to-day life. So in Saturday evenings, I cover 10 chapters. I do this from my house and I live stream it, and people attend class online. But when I teach here on Saturday mornings, I usually just teach a few chapters, kind of giving you guys an experience of what it is like to study the original words of the Buddha. And then I invite you guys to join some of the other programs that we have, because we have these other programs that will actually help you to really get started on the path to enlightenment. So if you'd like to join Sunday and Wednesdays, these are ideal for you, or any of the courses or retreats we have, there's bulletin board over there where you can see all the details. And we even have a website that has all the details of all the classes, courses, and retreats that we have. And keep in mind that everything's available for you at no cost. If you would like help to learn how to eliminate your anger and sadness and stress and anxiety and all these feelings, there's help for you here. You just need to decide that you're interested in doing that and getting to the point where your mind's completely peaceful and joyful. So if you have anything you'd like to talk with me about, you're more than welcome to do that. I'm going to just end by thanking you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest to learn and grow and develop. Whatever you choose to do today, have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Take care. Sawadee-kap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.